Few words on Rav Chaim Druckmann Zatzal, passed away 2 weeks ago. A few words in his memory. It's again impossible to summarize his great life. It's been hard to fathom, humanly possible, what he did. We talked about his shlichut, that his whole life lived as a mission. Hineni, right? We've mentioned Hineni, ready and willing to do for all that he can do for the nation, for every individual, 26 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's unbelievable. But we'll continue with maybe a few sources to describe what we can try to learn from that personality. The chapter, maybe you have Orot here. There's a chapter in Orot. Maybe I'll take one and see what page it's on in here. In Orot HaTchiyah, chapter 24, which is on page 338, 339 in English. $339 if you want the English. 339. What? Chapter 24. 339.
39, okay. Yes.
The Ashrei Ish Shechoshev Atzmo Kishirayim Legabei Knesset Yisrael Kula. How lucky, how happy is he that considers himself as a remainder. He translates it as Shirayim. The Gemara, this is based on a Gemara, like as you know, Rav Kook, all of his words, all of his writings are culled from the lexicon of all of the Torah, the Tanakh, the sages, the Midrashim, Gemara, Kabbalah. It's the more you know, the more you recognize the sources for every expression that he uses. But here there's a Gemara in Megillah, also in Rosh Hashanah, that he that considers himself a remainder, Shirayim, like of Knesset Yisrael. Knesset Yisrael is the spiritual, transcendent source of the nation of Israel. That we're all branches of extension throughout history, our bodies, the Jewish people, the nation. But there's a spiritual source that precedes all, the beginning of creation, the divine ideal that is concentrated in what is called the Neshama, the soul of Am Yisrael. And he is lucky, happy as he who recognizes himself as a part of that bigger unit, as a remainder, meaning he's part of something much greater. He's not the center, he's not the focus. He's part of something much greater, the nation of Israel, that nation that was chosen, created by God to reveal his name, this ideal, this goal of all of existence to be manifested in the world through this vehicle of the nation of Israel. And this person, this giant level of life that reaches the point that he recognizes himself, his whole existence is, like we were discussing Rav Druckmann, that recognizes himself as not of himself, in and of himself. And he also gives of himself, he contributes some of his time, that there's his life and there's also the giving. And he realizes he's just a limb of this collective body, which is the true reality. It's not some altruistic philosophical thinking. That's the reality. We're all parts of this bigger unit. The nation of Israel is one neshama, one soul, the rabbis say, in separate individual bodies. But those bodies are branches of the collective whole. As we brought down a few times, right, the famous, the Gemara and the Talmud Yerushalmi in the Darim, in chapter 9. The rabbis ask, how can one fulfill the commandment of lo tikom v'lo titor? Not to take revenge and not to bear a grudge. So there's a difference. Lo tikom, one is like to take revenge is, you ask someone once to lend me your camera. And he says no. And then he comes to you a week later and says, can I borrow your camera? He says, you didn't lend me mine, I won't lend you mine. You didn't give me yours, I won't give you mine. That's bearing a grudge. That's lo tikom, that's vengeance. But bearing a grudge is, he says, no, I will give it to you, but
because I'm better than
Right, not like you did to me last week, whatever. You didn't give me yours, but I am giving it. In other words, he still bears a grudge. He still remembers that. So how can you get over that? It's a human thing to not give now, not hit him back when he hit you, okay. But not to feel any animosity. Oh, yeah, so the Gemara gives the famous metaphor of someone that is cutting a piece of meat with a knife in his right hand and slips and cuts his left hand instead of the meat. Like a hammer, like you ever made. Take the hammer, you hit the nail, and sometimes you hit the finger. The Gemara says, the Rabbi say, will the left hand now rise up and take revenge on the right hand? Why not? The commentaries explain, right? Because it's all one. It's not someone else. I'm not hitting someone else, I'll get you back. It's me. Not only does my left hand hurt, now you want my right hand to hurt. In other words, it's not two different things that are competition or even friendly enough. In other words, it's one entity. But if the body is, let's say, anesthetized, then no, I don't feel your pain. He doesn't feel it's something else. He sees you as a separate thing. You hit me, I'll get you back, or at least bear a grudge. But no, if you understand the reality, when his body is healthy and working properly, they don't feel like they're two separate things. That they're part of one, the bigger one. There's a important, it should be famous, in other words, the introduction to a halachic work, a classic work of relatively modern, like over 100 years ago. Rav Shimon Shkop has a book of Lamdanut, halachic Gemara. How do you say Lamdanut? Halachic Torah the depth of study of the Talmud. Shara Yosha, Rav Shimon Shkop. But he, as an introduction to that, which is more like a lot of the introductions to these books, more of a, let's say, philosophical, spiritual introduction. And there he talks about how the love of oneself is a normal, even a natural thing, that one doesn't have to get over that, to ahava atzmit, to love yourself. He just says you have to elevate your image of what is yourself. Yourself is your body. It's me alone, everyone else, like a child. It's the beginning of development. Everything is just him. He wants to eat, he's hungry, he wants something else, he takes from the other person. There's no other consideration of the other. That's himself is just this private individual thing. Or yourself is your family, your nation, the world. In other words, you get bigger, the understanding of yourself, who the true self is, the bigger self, then you're allowed to love yourself, but not to leave it at the childhood level of yourself is just your private entity. You're part of a bigger tree, of a nation, of the world. Also, Rav Kook has a letter on that in volume 1 of the Igrot of Rav Kook. How to develop and expand the understanding of our oneness. The Jewish people are one. It's not some, Chassidut talks about this a lot. I think we brought down a few sources once on the oneness of Israel, that loving the other is not loving someone else. It's loving you. It's loving yourself. Because he is part of you. He's one of you. You're all, like I said, the Yerushalmi. That's the simplest put. You're part of one bigger body, one bigger entity. And that's the real you. Most of us, again, unfortunately, not I'll talk for myself, are on that level that we feel that. We instinctively, we consider the other people as ourselves, and we want the good of their benefit and their success. We live in a world of capitalism, whatever, competition, whatever. His success is your demise, and vice versa. But if you realize that it's one orchestra, one body. His good is his success is your success. His health is your success. You pray for the good for all you want, because it's you. It's literally not something else. But so here this person gets to this level of that he considers himself, he feels himself as this a small peg in this giant machine. And the more he realizes that and considers himself and recognizes that reality, then he becomes bigger. Although he attains the infinite significance of the cloud of which he is a part. He is infused with that bigger meaning of the collective, that now he's a branch, but he's a branch of something bigger. He's, how do you say, a part of infinite is also infinite. He's a part of this giant machine, this giant entity of the nation of Israel, Knesset Israel, the Shekhinah that's revealed through the nation of Israel. He is imbued with even more powers, and more energy, and more empowered and enhanced. It doesn't become belittled. Oh, the individual is now worthless, is meaningless. You're a tiny thing, but you have to give up your individuality for the sake of the klal, of the nation, of the collective, as if it's a self-sacrifice. No, it's just a self-elevation. Your true self is, like I said, you're part of this bigger unit. Like in the army, you're in a certain unit, you have a certain mission, a certain private thing, but you're part of this bigger battle, this bigger war, this bigger thing that's doing a bigger mission in life that you're a part of. You have an individual, unique contribution. But it doesn't end and start with you. You're part of something much greater, and their success is your success, or the orchestra, all the different metaphors we use. The orchestra, everyone succeeding is your success. You have to do your job. Indeed, it's not the same. It's not identity. Not everyone is the same, all created equal. We're all different, but all different parts of something much greater. And again, like I said, that enhances the value and the meaning of every individual. So here, this person that considers himself recognizes that he is a part of something much greater. I'll read it in English with you. What's Am Yisrael? What's Knesset Yisrael? The inheritance of Hashem. Again, this name, this unit of that God created the world to bring down His name, this ideal, this divine perfection of all of existence. That's what you're part of. Your life is super life, not less important, even more important. Whose total, what does that mean to be part of it, of the nation? Whose total thought, contemplation, desire, you can look inside, and aspiration, belief and concept, all these things, his thoughts, his contemplation, his aspirations, his whole life. It's not something external. Something has to, you want to maybe lower it, or I'll shut off you guys feel cold? Yeah. Unless you want it. You understand? It's not something external that you should, he gives up, like I said, part of his life, contributes, whatever, but his whole total thought, contemplation, desire, aspiration, his whole will, where he's at, is not but a single hidden desire to be totally subsumed in this treasure of life. To connect to Am Yisrael, to give to Am Yisrael, to contribute to the nation and to every individual. As we discussed a little bit, Rav Druckmann is 26, 27 hours a day just giving and available, and I don't give over the details of his life, but you see that it's possible. That his total dedication to be absorbed, subsumed here, to be in Hebrew, lihikalel, to be implanted in this life source, but how he brings down from the rabbis, to do kindness to his nest, Knesset Yisrael, to be totally dedicated. This is also from the Zohar, but of the Path of the Just, one of the few places, one of the only places that he brings down from the Zohar, in chapter 19, in the Path of the Just, he brings this down, of one who is dedicated to giving, to facilitate the redemption of Israel, to being part. Remember, if you know, you have Path of the Just here.
Rabbi, I've got a question. If the person is so dedicated and contributes so much to the society, how he balances his life and his family and his contribution?
That's what we said, that the miracle. Someone wrote an article about Rav Druckmann, a eulogy, so to speak, about the different miracles that Rav Druckmann used to say that he went through in his life. When he was saved by the Nazis, they dug a hole underneath the house, and they hid out, and the Nazis came in there. I remember I mentioned last week. Anyway, he was saved a few times in his life. And this other rabbi said, Yaniv says, but there's also another miracle of his existence, of his being. How did he do all that he did? He did deal with everything on the national level, the collective level, the yeshivot, the head of the yeshiva. We mentioned all the different things that he did, being in the Knesset 14 years, answering, and then into every individual, the phone, answered every hour, all the hours of the day, the night, 2 in the morning. He used to tell, call me 2, then I'll be maybe more free. Up till then, there's people here coming. And the family, you're right. He had time for the family, every child, every birth. He not just said Mazal Tov, called them up, went to the hospital of every child, grandchild, for sure, grandchild, great-grandchild. That was the miracle. That was the other miracle of his life, of his very existence. When did he eat? When did he sleep? So we'll see. that a person that lives on this life is connected to the source of life. His will is connected to the word will is ratzon, right? Ratzon is the letters of tzinor, a pipe. When you're in this will, you're connected to the pipe, to the divine will. Then you get this extra flow of life, this energy that's not human. It doesn't make sense. You're right. It's not. How can he do everything? How can he also not ignore the family, not ignore his private life? We also mentioned last week, I believe. Remember that source in Alat Riyadh. Kook explained that even when you do the individual fulfillment of betterment, a completion of yourself, learning something, studying, doing something, that is also not out of a selfish concern, but rather for the sake of building myself, for the sake of building the nation. I'm doing my individual thing. But Rav Druckmann got to the point not just of his individual studies for the sake of. His whole life was indeed in practice, giving and sacrificing, not to all. So you're right, it's a good question. That's the miracle of Rav Druckmann. How can he live like? How can you? And he wasn't a healthy person. I didn't know this much, but they wrote that he had cancer at some point and diabetes. He couldn't see in one eye. His legs were not functioning properly. At the end, he was in a wheelchair, but the years before that, in the 80s, he was still running around as if nothing. I didn't know. People didn't know that he was even sick. And he would act like he didn't. Other people that saw at the hospital, whatever, different things that he was tormented by, unbelievable pains. He gave lectures and again, 25 a week, and the permanent ones, the fixed ones every week. But besides that, all over the country. This is a sick man. This wouldn't embarrass a 12-year-old, how do you say, a teenager, a youngster, 80s, in his 70s, 80s, and 90s. Died at 90. Till his last days, giving shurim. And all that, sickly. The body didn't limit his neshama. You're right. It's extra energies. Siyata d'shmai, this divine infusion that is not normal. You see that great rabbi. Look at the Rambam, his life. You read his story, his schedule of the day also. Unbelievable. Where did they get the power? How can they do everything? That's the miracle. But that's the true, when you live up, when you're in touch with your true self, that true neshama, that true divine energy source, you tap into that, you're aligned with that, then there's a flow of energy, of life, of that you can do all these things. Otherwise, like I said, you can't explain it all. But anyway, in the chapter 19 in the Path of the Just, about the elements of piety, if I can find it in this edition, it's a long chapter. He says, he brings down from the Midrash, Tana of Eliyahu, that every sage, and this is the Ramchal bringing down from the words of our sages in the Midrash, Tana of Eliyahu, Rabbah 4, every sage of Israel who truly possesses the words of Torah and grieves for the glory of Hashem and the glory of Israel, the honor of Israel, throughout his life, that's what he's focused on, and longs for and suffers over the honor of Jerusalem, that is destroyed when we're in exile, and the glory of the Beit HaMikdash, that is, again, lost when it's destroyed. That's what concerns you. That's what his focus, that's what his aspirations and when he's lacking the Beit HaMikdash. How can he sleep when there's no Beit HaMikdash, when the Jews are suffering, when the Jews are in exile? And he's also his lust for the swift coming of the redemption and the ingathering of the exiles. He is granted divine inspiration in his words. A person like that is linked to the divine ideal, this divine ratzon, and becomes a tzinor, this pipe of infusion of life, of energy. Like he's empowered because he's part of the cloud now. He's just so connected, the branch connected to the tree, that he's got more life. The branch that disconnects from the tree, he thinks, well, I'm going to worry about myself. I have to worry about myself. I have my private concerns and development. So what the heck with the nation, this bigger idea. I want to grow and develop physically, spiritually. So I'll cut myself off. I'll be separate from the nation. I can't focus on everything. I have to focus on myself. But like a branch cut off from the tree, he's not helping himself. He's cutting himself off from the very life source. He dries up. What the Chazal say, what does it say about he that cuts himself off from the tzibur? Haporesh min tzibur, ein lo chelek leolam haba. But he doesn't have a place in the world to come. The Rambam explains he gets up to heaven, so to speak. I'm adding. He gets up and they say, you can't come into this world to come, whatever this. He says, I did this, all these mitzvot, I didn't do any sins. Yes, but that connection, the Rambam says he has no sins, whatever, but the disconnection from the source of life, it's an objective reality. You cut the branch off from the tree. That's not the ultimate of my individuality. That's the opposite. That's the dissection of your individuality from its source. You're less alive. Of Cook writes in Orot, I don't think that part's translated here. No, he only has. No, he doesn't have that part of Orot. There's a few sections in Orot. On page 120, Kuf Chaf Hey in Orot, I'll just say quickly, the same idea, the submission before God, the subordination, so to speak, the connection, the, how do you say here, what he calls it, the connecting yourself so to the divine. What? Commitment, hachna'ah here. The hachna'ah is like the submission, so to speak, connecting like which is something, he puts in his parenthetical remark, which is something normal, natural for every created being to litbatel, to nullify itself to its source, to its collective source. Like I get it, to a branch, to a tree. It's the most natural thing that the branch wants to connect to the tree and continue its private existence, to being fruits and etc. But that has by its connection to the roots. Certainly, it is a natural thing to the source of all sources, the source of all life. Then he gets back to the sentence: this connection to Hashem, this, so to speak, submission, that my whole life is just dedicated to connecting to Hashem, to fulfill His will, to bring down that ideal in this world. Lo tzara v'tich, this isn't some pain or belittlement, but rather oneg v'komiyut, rather satisfaction and grandeur and uplifting. In other words, this is empowering. This connecting of the branch to the roots is, to the divine roots, is even more empowering, more fulfilling of the individual. So then he goes on, the path of the just, after he brings down the words of the rabbis. From this we learn that the most highly esteemed form of intent is one that is completely divorced from all personal wants. Right, this is what we mentioned here. This person whose total wants, desires, contemplations, aspirations is just to be subsumed in this treasure of life, to do kindness to his nest. So look what he says here. This person is totally divorced from, right, the opposite, from all the personal wants, and is concerned only with the glory of the divine presence and the sanctification of God's name, which is sanctified among his creatures when they fulfill his will. Referring to this, they said, the rabbis from the Zohar, again, this is one, I think the only place that he brings down from the Zohar. It's all based on Kabbalah, the deeper wisdom, the Ramchal, but in this book, the Vilna Gaon says it in the first, I think, 11 chapters, every word here has a simple meaning and also according to the deeper understanding. Rav Lutzata was other books of Kabbalah, but here it's like the book of morals and ethics, so to speak, but hidden. But here he can't hold himself, so to speak, he brings down the explicit source. Just like the rabbi said, who is a pious person? The one who acts with piety towards his creator. Ezu chasid hamitchasedim kono. That's what it says here. Here he translates it to do kindness to his nest. Right, his nest, the God's nest, so to speak. The manifestation of the Jewish people in this world is God's nest that reveals himself in this world. Here he translates it, who acts with piety towards his creator. Hamitchased im kono. That's the quote that he brings here, right? Litchased im ken delay. The Knesset Israel, the same, different wording of the same source. That is this level that we're talking about, this grand level, at the lofty level, of where one's whole life is dedicated and devoted to that fulfillment of the nation of Israel, to bring the redemption, which again, the path of the just goes on. Why is that so important to the nation of Israel? We understand that you want the good of God. But he says, why does he say there he prays for the redemption of Israel? For it is impossible, on page 139 here in the English translation, for it is impossible for the glory of God to be enhanced, so this different translation I'm used to, but without the redemption of Israel and the enhancement of Israel's glory, because one is absolutely tied to the other. One dependent. Now the redemption of Israel is the manifestation, or to start with the other way, the honor of God in the world, the name of God, this ideal of divine ideal for all of creation is revealed through the redemption of Israel. One depends on the other. The honor of God in the world is impossible to be expressed except through the enhancement of the redemption of Israel and their glory and their honor. It's not worried for some national glory. We want our good, that we should be successful in the world. Our success, the name of Israel, Knesset Israel, the name of God, is the name of God in this world that reveals this good for all of creation, all of existence, all of mankind. Not a private goal. The Vilna Gaon, in his commentary to the Mishnah in Brachot chapter 5, He said the Hasidim used to pray, an hour before the prayers, an hour after, in other words, to get their intentions focused properly to their Father in heaven. The Vilna Gaon explains what is the intention of the prayer. He says it's forbidden to pray except for the hashtamat, the completion of Knesset Yisrael, for the full expression of what is the energies, the light in the Knesset Yisrael, the nation of Israel. All prayers are supposed to be focused on that. We mentioned how you're allowed to ask for personal requests in certain prayers, and also in the Shomea Tefillah, you're going to add along your own private requests. But even then, his student, Rav Chaim Volozhin, in the Nefesh HaChaim, in Gate 2, Chapter 11, explains that even that is for the intention of the fulfillment of the Shekhinah, of God's presence in the world. Even when you ask for your private benefit, it's not, like I said before, it's not your private for the sake of my private benefit. I want to be complete and healthy and fulfill myself in order to complete the nation of Israel that I'm a part of. The nation, he brings down the Shekhinah, he brings down the sword in the Sanhedrin, that the Shekhinah cries out. When someone is sick, then the Shekhinah is lacking. What it says before, the honor of God is revealed to the honor of Israel. And that honor depends on every Jew. If someone is not proper, not healthy, not complete in his own personal, physical, or spiritual benefit state, then the nation is lacking. The Shekhinah is now lacking. There's a hole in the cup, then the hole doesn't hold water. So even when you pray for the individual, like we said before, we mentioned last week in Olat Riyah, right, Hashkivenu, that you're not supposed to stop the collective Bagal Yisrael, the collective, and the prayers of the Amidah, the collective request, and then your private request. Even the private request in the middle, Hashkivenu, is not a, Rabbi say it's not considered a hefsek, it's not considered a stop, a break between the kind of collective and the collective, the private in the middle. No, even the private, we said, is for the sake of my private benefit, my private fulfillment of working and learning and studying and becoming whatever I'm learning and doing in the world, is to contribute to complete the nation, is for the sake of the collective completion, which requires me to be the best I am in my individual, because if my branch is missing, then the orchestra, my instrument is missing. The orchestra, the symphony orchestra doesn't have the proper music. But the intention, we mentioned last week, the difference between the intention and the acts. I'm now working on myself, completing myself, going to med school to be the best doctor, whatever. Not to go out and run in a day. No, I have to be the best I can, to study individually, to be the best and now, in order to give, to be the best doctor, to help others. But now I'm focused on my private self, so to speak, doing my studies and focusing. But all that, and the intention, we said, though, is for the sake of the giving, for this collective giving of the whole that I'm a part of, which ultimately is for myself. Like I said, it's very selfish, so to speak. You're allowed to love yourself, but yourself is not the private you. It's the bigger you, the collective you. That's your true self. So that is, he says, you live only for the single hidden desire he calls it hidden desire. Cheshek Tamir. It's this inner dimension. In other words, it's true inner essence. To do good for all. That's what the thing we mentioned in Orot Yisrael. Also, the end of Orot, there's a section called Orot Yisrael. In chapter 1, paragraph 4, he says, I'll just translate quickly, this needs a lot of study in and of itself. The ultimate, the inner essence to be, or the absolute desire maybe, the absolute desire to do good for all. Just to bestow good, lakol, to all, with no limitations in the world whatsoever. Neither, no limit to the quantity of the good upon which of those you bestow the good. In other words, no limit to the quantity of the beneficiaries of that good, nor no limit to the quality of the good you wish to bestow. In other words, unlimited good. This absolute desire just to do good, to liot tov. Like it says he brings it down later, where you say in Ashrei, in Tehillim 145, Tov Hashem lakol. God is good for all, to all. It's unlimited good. What's that essence? That essence of that desire to be good, to do good, to live good, to manifest good, that is the inner, there's 5 levels here, the inner kernel of the essence of the neshama of Knesset Yisrael, which we said that is the inner essence of the nation of Israel. So there's the inner essence, and there's levels and levels here. The inner kernel of the essence of the neshama of Knesset Yisrael. That's our essence, that desire for good. Again, not all of us, or maybe again speaking for myself, live on that level, that totally 24 hours a day, that's we manifest that total, our whole life is just to bestow good, unlimited good, the good that God knows, even more that we understand, the absolute good. That's our soul. That is our neshama is called from that, right? Chelek Hashem Amo, it says in Dvarim, right, 32. The portion of God in this world, the nation of Israel, that's that kernel of godliness in this world, the Shekhinah. The rabbis say the Knesset Yisrael, that's the Shekhinah. God's presence in the world, God's manifestation, His good, this light. That's the neshama of Am Yisrael. That's what we're called from. The more you live up to that, you don't have to be some altruistic to learn, I don't know, Emily Post, a moral to help others, to give to others, to try some external coercions, external study, so to speak. Most of us have to. In other words, we don't live it naturally. We have to work on ourselves to get to that point. But you don't have to create something out of nowhere, yesh mi'ayin. That's our essence. It's just returning to, living up to, exposing who we really are, living according to your neshama, your true essence. And there's people that we're talking about that live that get to that life level. That point that he says here, that their whole contemplation, whole desire, aspiration is just to do good, just to connect, to give, to be connected to Am Yisrael, to give to that nation, which means to the Shekhinah, to add, to reveal God's name in this world. He goes on, that's the secret of our inner desire for redemption in the nation. It's not just in order that we should now be free from anti-Semitism, from pogroms and problems, and want to be free, let us live in peace. No, in order to manifest that good, like we just said in the Path of the Just, and other sources we learned throughout the year, that the name of God, this ideal of God for the world, for goodness, that is revealed to the world through this vehicle He created, this nucleus, that from which this heart of the nations, the heart of the world, and the Shema of the world, that through this vehicle, the redemption of Israel brings about, enables the good to be broadcast and spread, and revealed in all, to bring to full manifestation the divine ideal for all of existence. For that we want to live. For that we want to be in Eretz Yisrael. For that we want the redemption. He's like a mother. I think Rav Sasson once gave this metaphor of, we spoke about Rav Drukman actually. A mother that sit down for dinner, the kids come to the table, she puts schnitzel on the plates, and the kids what are they thinking about? Each one wants to make sure that they have their schnitzel and chips on their plate. What's the mother thinking about? How much schnitzel she can get. She wants to make sure that all the kids have what to eat and they're satiated and happy. She's not even thinking about herself. She doesn't think, wait a minute, how much is left for me? So she's, no, I'll overcome my personal desires and I'll see that they have what to eat. That's all she's thinking about. This commitment, what does he say here? This remainder. She just feels herself as shiraim. She's just part of the family, like her family. That's her. That's what she wants to give to them, is to make sure they're happy. This hidden desire to be totally subsumed in this treasure of life of her family. That's a natural, instinctive, what he calls here, hakara pnimit, this instinctive, what he calls it in English, the inner awareness. Maybe we'll read on this, chapter 24. The inner awareness, on the next page, that we are branches of a luxurious, bountiful tree of life. Exactly what we said before. We're branches of that tree of life. That's the reality. But the inner awareness, that we get to that consciousness, that's our life, what they call toda'ah, our consciousness, our life level. To the extent that we are bound in the body of the tree that we live, then we live life at its fullest and freshest in the present and eternity. That will bring the renaissance, the redemption, renaissance of the people to its destination. Only it will bring about the end for which we long and grant us the fortitude of salvation. These are the levels that we're talking about. This life level that actually infuses the nation and brings it back to life and redemption. These people that are totally dedicated, again, it's not sacrifice. You know, they get to the point, it's not their mother doesn't sacrifice her piece of schnitzel. She wants, that's all she wants, to feed the children. The children, like I said, their focus is on the individual, the private. That's how it starts. Individual developmental stages of whatever. The child just focus on the material, himself, the physical, the body, eating and sleeping. Later it gets up to more of these spiritual things and different ideas. And there's different levels that talk about it. Maybe the nefesh, the ruach, neshama. There's levels and levels as a person develops. But he's supposed to leave that private individual shell That's what maybe I wanted to get to, another source to share with you. Read that. To leave, this call to leave the private, to leave your private shell. Rav Kook has a chapter called Yesod HaKlalut, the principle of, he calls it here the universality. This is the book I mentioned to you last week. Remember I told you about this last week. I wanted to bring a few sources from here, but it's Abraham Isaac Cook, from the Classics of Western Spirituality. It's, again, he translates only certain things of Rav Kook, more the abstract, the spiritual, Orot HaKodesh, which, again, they're important things, but nevertheless, this is from that book. So it's easier for you to read instead of me translating it to you. From the Lights of Holiness of Rav Kook, Volume 3. A person must liberate himself. You have to free himself from the confinement within his private concerns. In Hebrew, to get rid of out of his mizgarotav pratiot, his private confines, his private framework. That this framework, this private concerns that pervades his whole being, so that all his thoughts and focus only on his own identity, his own destiny. That's all, like I said, like a child. He's just focused on himself. Most of it, again, not a lot of us. Our entire day we just deal with ourselves. Our bodies, I'm hot, I'm hungry, or the spiritual, my soul, like I want to buy my honor, my respect. It's all about me. Egocentric. It's all 24 hours a day, just focusing on me and my benefit and my success, how I look and how my ratings and my likes. And do I succeed? So the person must free himself from that, because that is the ultimate, how do you say, the opposite of freedom, the ultimate limitations to keeping him from who he really is. Like I said, cutting the branch off from the tree doesn't make him free. He thinks, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to worry about other people, other things. It's certainly not religion and God, whatever. I'm just individual. But cutting yourself off from the very life source, that's not freedom. He says that reduces him to the worst kind of smallness and brings upon him endless physical and spiritual distress. When you're cut off from that roots, that everything is now focused on you. You're never satisfied. You always want more. The other guy has more and more money and more cars and more this. You're never happy. You're never satisfied. What the other guy has, you want. What we call kinah, jealousy. And those are the three things that take a person out of the world, right? In Pirkei Avot, chapter 4. Kinah v'tava v'kavod motzim et adam min olam. The jealousy, lust, and honor, seeking of honor, take the person out of the world. He can't live a normal life. He's never satisfied. He's never happy. The other guy has more. The other guy has something else. He's more honor, more respect, more this, more. So there was a guy once, a long time ago, I think, I read how someone in Germany, I forgot what he said, how he was the 25th richest person in the world. And he committed suicide. Because I think he went down on the list from 25 to, I don't remember the number, lower on the list. So life wasn't worth living anymore. At 25, he had enough to be happy, so to speak. He wasn't satisfied. Motzim otam min ha'olam. It's not a punishment. He says this brings to this physical and spiritual distress. It is necessary to raise a person's thought and will. That you will, like your whole desire, that's you, at the life level, like the mother that wants the good for all. But not just the mother limited to her family, but we mentioned the famous of Rav Kook, the Shir HaMerubah in Orot HaKodesh, Volume 2. The quadruple song of a person who sings the song of the individual, of himself, focused on himself, surrounding himself. And then there's a person who sings the song of his family, he's concerned with, he cares about, that's him, that the bigger me. He feels the mother, that feels the pain of the children. It's her, it's part of her. And then there's a person who sings the song of the nation, the song of the world, the song of mankind. And ultimately, he says the song of all songs, Shir HaShirim Shlomo, Shir El. Shir El Yisrael, like Shir El, the song of God, the source of all, connected to all. He sings this song, and that's where he's at. Again, these are high levels. It's easy to say, but that's where his life level is. His will. He raises his thought and his will and his basic preoccupations towards universality, to the inclusion of all, to the whole world, to man, to the Jewish people, to all existence. This will result in establishing even his private self on a proper basis. It's not less you, sacrificing for the sake of the nation, of the world, of altruistic for mankind. No, that's the biggest you. Because again, you, we mentioned, is not just your body. You're part of the world, and you're a unique branch, etc., contribution. But cutting yourself off doesn't benefit you. The opposite. Connecting yourself to the cloud that you're a part of, you're infused with the blessing of the nation that you are part of. You're part of this giant union. The firmer a person's vision of universality, of this collectivity, the greater the joy he'll experience. Because you're more yourself. Just like I said before, in Orot Yisrael here. That's your true essence. The more you're aligned with yourself, living yourself, true to your inner reality, then you're so happy. You're healthy physically and spiritually, and everything flows. And you're also connected to the roots above, and you get more infused with more energy, literally energies. Power to do things that even, like I said, the body doesn't limit as much. Rabbi Druckmann, in spite of all the weakness of the body. Also Rav Amar said this at the eulogy, that the weakness of the body couldn't stop this neshama from acting and doing in the world, giving this contribution. That's what Rav Yaniv said over and over again, the miracle, that there's laws of the body, there's laws of the physical law that they get limit. And he was a walking miracle. That's what I mentioned. Rav Neria called Rav Druckmann the Eish Pele, this man of wonder, this wonder man. Because again, when you're linked to the source, then you're amazingly don't have these limitations and can live a different dimension of life. And that's what this generation needs. We're living in a generation that is ready for that greatness and demands that greatness. And speaking to them on this level of giving, you're part of something much greater. They want to give. The youth, they want to contribute. They want to. When you say small things, then they don't like it. They reject it and look elsewhere. But if you talk big, gadlut, and expose these ideals and the grandeur, and you show them an example of Rav Druckmann, of people, this living force, how do you say, something to emulate, something to try for, that ignites them, because they're truly ready for that. You speak big, and they're ready for that bigness. And that's what we have to broadcast. What Rav Kook says here, we have to, this call to free ourselves from the private, from the small, from the egocentricity, whatever, to the selfishness. With the Ramchal, again, it's not something new. The Ramchal that we said, the Hasid, of getting out of the private shell. It's like a chick. Also, Rav Sasson gave this example of a chick in its shell. It measures everything in its shell, right? That's its whole world is now focused on this little. This is the world. He measures, and this is my whole. All of a sudden, the shell opens up. Wow, he's exposed to. There's other chickens, and there's other. How do you say chicken coops, and then lulim, other expanses. Wow, I'm part of something much bigger. My whole view of myself and the world is taken on new dimensions. It's a new reality. It's a new. I'm part of something. I'm part of something much bigger. Everything changes. So that's what he says. It becomes a whole different. This inner awareness, it raises the person, and also we mentioned it brings about, helps the nation come back to itself. And that's what we have to do. That's why they devoted a little bit of time to discuss again, because Rav Druckmann, what someone also mentioned in one of the eulogies that his daughter told him, one of the mentions of the eulogy of this rabbi that knew Rav Druckmann, and he was came to the family. The family lived in his neighborhood, and then Merkat Shapira, and the daughter said that he didn't do any supernatural miracles, like wonders. You tell about some rabbi that did, mystical things, and he looked at people and healed them, whatever. We mentioned a little bit that we mentioned of his life of giving and doing, and in the Knesset and giving shurim. There's no miracles here. But that was the amazing thing, that he did so many, and there was but we can learn from that. In other words, something that we can emulate. If it's an angel, we can't say, how can you copy? How can you learn from that? He was not from this world. But nevertheless, we can see that here there are things that are just giving. So each one of us takes a little bit of that light. He died the 8th Hanukkah, when all the candles were lit. Everything was fit, all the nation, all the different aspects. He also used to work to unify all the different candles of Israel, the different groups and movements, and how to show the connection, bring them all together, recognize our true essence. So now that central light, that total light is, now each one of us has to continue a little bit of that light. Each one has the ability to continue, in each one in our own ways and our own talents and ways to apply, but to continue this light. And that's why it's very important to know where we're going, what we're part of, and how important each tiny light that we add, each little bit, like I said, makes us feel this joy and feel this satisfaction and vitality, but also that we contribute. It's so important because it's giving so much to the world, to all of existence. You're part of something super, something gigantic, something enormous. You're part of Knesset Israel, and that brings that blessing of God, or that goodness to God, and you have an individual, unique contribution. Only you can do this part that you're brought to this world to do. No one else can do your job. If not, you wouldn't have been created. You have a unique contribution only you can do. And now at this time of these generations, like at the time of the redemption, when Jews are coming back to the land, the rebuilding of the nation, physically and now spiritually, fulfillment of the redemption, each one of us has a great goal, a great aspect, contribution to add to that. And that should fill us with mission, like some people, they can't get up in the mornings, whatever, because they have no goal, but if you realize how your job is so important, so crucial, you jump out of bed, you have a mission, you have a shlichut, hineni, like Rabbi used to call it, hineni, I'm here, ready and willing to do. And that's what each one of us to take. Each one of us to take and to give and contribute at the most we can of our unique individual contribution to that bigger light, to that bigger goal. And that fills us again with our lives with meaning. Every detail is now full of meaning and purpose. B'ezrat Hashem.